The first step of seeking help is to identify when and how to seek help. So our next speaker, Dr. Mukesh, who is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at AIIMS, Jodhpur, will be discussing about this topic. Over to you, sir.
So, good afternoon all. Till now, you have understood the ways to prevent emotional distress or dealing with different life situations, maybe uncertainty related situation or internet use related difficulties and relationship related difficulties. So if you are able to use all those skills, you are less likely to experience the emotional distress. But there will be life situation where you are not able to cope with the situation, or situation is overwhelming, or you are still working to develop your own skills. So at that time, all of you are likely to experience some or other kind of emotional distress. So in such scenario, taking help from your near and dear ones or professional help is very important. So I am going to talk about that scenario only, that when in a situation when you are experiencing significant emotional distress, how you can go through that particular situation so that you can overcome it by taking help of others. And simultaneously at the end, I will also talk about briefly that how you can help others in certain situation when they are experiencing emotional distress, because that skill also empower you to seek help for yourself also. So it will be kind of bi-directional. So when we talk about emotional distress, first you should be able to define whether you are in a state of well-being or not. So if you say you are in a state of well-being, these four criteria, or I would say four aspects, you should be able to meet. One is that you should be able to realize your own capabilities or your own potential. You should understand your strengths as well as limitations. Then you should be able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So whatever difficulties or whatever ups and downs you are experiencing in your life, you should be able to deal with it, and you should be able to navigate through it and move forward in your life. And if you are able to identify your abilities and you are coping well with your normal stresses, you will definitely work productively and also contribute to your community. So if you are doing all these things, probably you are in a state of well-being. Opposite of this well-being is emotional distress. Emotional distress is that when you are experiencing suffering at emotional level because of whatever stressors or whatever the usual demands of your life are there, and you are the situation is very difficult, that you are not able to cope with those situations in daily life. So basically, when there is imbalance between your perception of stressors or demands, that whatever situation is there, how you are perceiving that situation, and your own coping abilities. So when perception is more demanding or more severe, then you may experience emotional distress in such scenarios. So distress is nothing to worry about. Distress is actually a tool, especially at a younger age. It is inevitable, and it is also useful for your evolution, your growth as a person. So if you are experiencing distress, you should be thankful to Almighty that you are actually experiencing distress, so that you can evolve, you can invent yourself by going through that emotional distress. So emotional distress basically helps you to prepare and identify and polish your own strengths and techniques, how you can deal with that particular situation or that emotional distress. And at that time, it is very common, and I would say everybody of you might have experienced such kind of emotional situation when you are experiencing anxiety, sadness, irritability. Even sometimes you might have got some sleep disturbance also. But that doesn't necessarily indicate that it is a kind of diagnostic of some psychiatric illness. So experiencing emotional distress is not equal to psychiatric illness, but still, emotional distress, if not handled properly, can subsequently lead to some or other kind of psychological disorder. So, most important thing that I want to emphasize here is self-awareness. You should reflect daily on your experiences so that you can recognize what kind of emotion you are experiencing in what situation, so that you can identify, okay, I need to evolve certain techniques or develop my own methods to deal with particular situation, so that my experience of this distressing emotion reduces. So awareness is one of the most important component by which you can try to minimize your emotional distress, or you can develop your own skills to deal with that emotional distress. Now, in situation of emotional distress, it is possible that you are trying to deal with those situations with your own methods, but in certain situations, those methods stop working. So it is important that you seek help from others. So it is important because it will provide you a different kind of perspective. Sometimes you are looking at a particular situation from one angle, and if you discuss with the same situation with your friends, colleagues, or some family members, they may be able to give you some other perspective of the same situation. So that also ease out to a certain extent the amount of distress you are experiencing. So seeking help or talking about your distress is likely to provide you a different perspective. Second important reason why you should try to seek help for your emotional distress is that you may learn from the experience of the others. So if you are discussing whatever issue you are experiencing with some person, and that person already have experienced certain situation and successfully navigated through that situation, they can suggest you their own methods. So you can learn from their experience also. It's not that you learn by your own trial and error methods. So discussing again is important from this perspective. Third, and one of the more important reason why you should discuss, even if someone is not able to help you in certain situation, while you are narrating your problem, it can lead you to a potential solution. So when you talk about your problem, you yourself may develop some idea. Okay, I haven't think about this particular solution earlier, but now while I am discussing, I am getting that solution. So even if the person to whom you are talking is not able to give you some solution, maybe by narrating your problem, you will be able to get a solution at some point of time. So that's why you should always try to seek some kind of help. Now, even if you have identified that you are experiencing emotional distress and you know that you should seek help, there are certain factors or certain barriers, I would say, for seeking help. Why you decide not to seek help, and you should be aware of these barriers so that you can overcome these barriers and seek help for your emotional distress. One important barrier is poor understanding of the problem. Sometimes we all go through certain situation that we are experiencing emotional distress, but we are not able to label it. We are not able to give word to that problem. So we are not actually defining the problem or understanding the whole issue. Second possibility is that we try to avoid the distressing topic. Whatever situation give us some kind of pain or some kind of distress, we don't want to talk about it. So both this situation lead to poor understanding of the problem because actually you are not engaging in that problem. So you may avoid seeking help because you are actually avoiding the problem itself. Second issue or second barrier that is very common among youth is prejudice of not being understood. This is a common statement given by the youth that my parents will not understand me, my friends will not understand me, or whatever, to whomsoever I am going to talk about this problem, they will not understand. Again, this is a kind of prejudice, and you should break that barrier and try to talk to that person. Anyone who is a well-wisher for you is going to understand you. Only thing is that you need to be very clear in your communication. Third and more prevalent social reason for not seeking help for any emotional issue, and more so for some kind of psychiatric disorder or mental illness, is the assumption or stigma associated with emotional issues. So if someone is experiencing some emotional distress or having some emotional problem, they can presume that if I am weak, that's why I am experiencing emotional problem. So emotional problem or emotional distress is commonly associated with weakness in the society. So again, you need to understand that this perception may not be there in your close ones, and even if that perception is there among your close ones, you need to talk about it. That's the way you can overcome the stigma or the barriers. So to overcome these barriers, you need to talk openly about your difficulties, and very clear communication should be there. Then to overcome stigma, you should understand that seeking help actually reflect your clarity, not the weakness, and your will to move forward. So it is actually, if you are seeking help for your emotional issue, probably you are stronger than others because you are able to accept your emotional distress, accept your limitation or weakness, and you are trying to improve over those limitations. So it is actually a strength, not the weakness. Second thing, you should focus more on the facts rather than the public perception. So if this is a public perception that having some kind of emotional distress is weakness or some negative attributes are given to that particular situation, you should focus more on the facts, whether it actually is. Then final thing is that you should think about yourself. So prioritize your own needs over the expectations of the others. Sometimes your peers or even the family members may think that you should behave like a brave person or you should behave in a particular manner. You should not fall prey to certain kind of expectation. Rather, you should prioritize your own needs over expectation of other people. So, identifying your need when there is a need to seek help. So, in most of the situation of emotional distress, what you will do, you will try to handle it by your own ways, by your own methods. But when you have tried these, but your methods are not working, and when it starts affecting your routine and the rational approach cannot be applied at that particular time, then you may think that probably I should seek help from someone. That is the situation. So broad indicator is that there is a consistent change in pattern and that is leading to distress. By consistent, I mean that if distress is persisting over days, maybe weeks, then definitely you should try to seek help. Because it is possible that you are experiencing distress for a day or 2 days and you use your own methods and you are able to cope with the situation and navigate through that difficult situation. But if that emotional distress is persistent and your pattern or routine has changed and it is causing distress throughout the day, then definitely it's a broad indicator that probably you need some kind of help to deal with that particular situation. These are some of the, again, broad pointers when you can think about seeking help. One is that while you are experiencing difficulty in interpersonal relations, you are unable to comply with required assignment or your performance is declining and you are not able to maintain your routine, your sleep patterns, your eating patterns have changed, and sometimes physical symptoms are there that are not explained, like you are experiencing persistent headaches for long, you are experiencing body aches or some other kind of physical symptoms for which there is no diagnosis by a doctor or they are not explained by any kind of illness. So, such kind of unspecified symptoms indicate that there is some significant emotional distress is present. So, if these changes are present consistently, you should think about seeking help. So, you can ask broad question to yourself, like, are your thoughts, emotions, or behaviors out of control and affecting your relationship? Are you engaging excessively in some kind of distraction, like you are excessively engaging in some gaming or engaging in some kind of addictive substance like smoking, alcohol use, that kind of thing you have started doing excessively watching TV, any kind of distraction that is disrupting your routine and you are using that to get away from that emotionally disturbing situation. If engagement is excessive, then again you should think about it. Then if you are feeling confused for longer, are you feeling overwhelmed by your problems or stressful situation and events in your life? And finally, are you persistently feeling unhappy or dissatisfied? So if any of these questions you ask to yourself and the answer is yes, then you should think about it that you need to seek help from someone to deal with the situation and to change answer to these questions. So once you have identified that, okay, I am experiencing some kind of emotional distress and I need to seek help and you have decided to seek help, how you should go about it? First is that you should connect with people around you. There are people around you who are your well-wishers and even if they don't understand your situation, it is possible that they don't have your background knowledge that what you are experiencing and they are not able to pick the non-verbal cues as well. Sometimes we think that people around us should understand that I'm experiencing certain kind of difficulty, I am experiencing certain kind of distress or pain. But until unless you clearly communicate with them, it is possible that they are not able to make it out. So connect with people around you, and it should be a clear and direct communication. Even if they are not able to understand by your behavior, you should clearly communicate with them that I am experiencing distress because of this particular situation. So don't rely only on the non-verbal communication or your expectation that they should understand. Clear communication is very important with such situation, and without that, you cannot expect that someone is going to help you in many situations. Third, and an important aspect for seeking help is being non-judgmental to yourself, and you should not refrain from asking about the doubt or concern. So don't judge yourself for any of the limitation or asking anything that I don't know certain things, so I am weak or I have this limitation. If you judge yourself negatively, then you are not going to reveal all the things or all the difficulties. So don't refrain from asking your doubt and concern, and don't judge yourself. So these are the basic tenets on which your behavior on which you should seek your to approach. Again, first step is the family and friends. You should approach your family members or your friends or colleagues. If there is a situation which you can't share with them, you can connect with your teachers or mentors whom you regularly meet. Even if that is not working or situation is more difficult, requires some kind of expertise, you can connect with your student counselor. Most of the schools and colleges has provision of student counselor. So they are a very important resource in dealing with such situation. It is not that when you are experiencing some kind of psychiatric illness or psychological disorder, then only you go to the counselor. Even if you are in a difficult situation when you cannot connect with the you cannot deal with that situation, you can take help of the student counselor. And finally, you can go to a mental health professional, clinical psychologist or psychiatrist. This particular group has certain benefits that they have expertise in dealing with the psychological situation. They provide a non-judgmental environment where you can talk about your difficulties or your situations. And finally, you have a privacy that you can discuss the discrete issues also, because there are certain issues you do not want to discuss with your family, friends, even teachers and mentors. You can talk about those issues with the mental health professionals. So try to take this step ladder approach, going upwards from family, friends up to the mental health professional, depending on the situation, depending on the issue, as well as depending on the severity. Because in certain situation, maybe you require a lot of professional help. So in such situation, you can directly go to the mental health professional, or you can talk to your teachers, mentors, whether in particular situation you require some kind of professional help or not. Because if you are not able to decide that, you can talk first to your family and then move on to mental health professionals. Now, these were the things how you can seek help, when to seek help, and to whom you can contact to seek help. Now, I'm going to talk about an important concept of psychological first aid. That is a technique, or I would say it is a layman's method to help others in a situation of emotional distress. So it is a kind of situation like you might have heard about the first aid, in which whenever there is a trauma, we give certain maybe antiseptic, apply, wash the wound, certain kind of things that by which the risk of subsequent infection is reduced. So psychological first aid is on the similar line. So whenever someone is in emotional difficult situation, he or she cannot go directly to seek professional help. So you just bridge that gap and provide some psychological support so that the situation doesn't worsen. So if you learn about psychological first aid, there are a lot of benefits that it helps in overcoming the barriers like stigma for seeking professional help. It will also enhance your own understanding of stress and how to deal with stress, because if you are helping someone else, you learn how to seek help also and how to deal with particular situation. So it will evolve your own skills as well. Third is it will also create an environment of trust and support in your working areas, in your educational institute also. When you are practicing this psychological first aid, there will be an environment of trust and support. So you should always try to provide psychological support to other people who are in psychological distress. and it requires only connecting with the people with compassion and being non-judgmental. If you have these two attributes, then you can anyway help any person. So in psychological first aid, first thing you should understand or first thing you should do is to look around you, look for the common signs that reflect the emotional distress. Like I told you, that common signs like experiencing some kind of sleep disturbance, change in routine, change in behavior, or unexplained physical symptoms. Is suffering from some kind of emotional distress. So you should be able to identify the emotional distress. And if you try to identify emotional distress in others, you are able to recognize your own emotional distress also. So it is important or beneficial in both ways. Second thing you should do is to connect with that particular person. That is the listening. Listen to the concern and experience of that person. Listen what one is feeling and why the person is feeling in that particular way. And while listening, you should not intrude. Just you should be present there. Maintain a calm presence that is sufficient. You need not to intrude or you need not to advise that person. Even if you are silent, you are helping that person by listening non-judgmentally. So you should not give advice, you should not judge. Acknowledge the distress and empathize with that person. The only thing you can do is to reassure that person that okay, things will be fine. I am trying to understand your issue. Once you have listened to the person, try to link the person with the resources. Means you can provide resources in form of your own experience that you can deal with this situation with this particular situation, particular techniques or particular methods, or you can connect with particular maybe counselor or some administrative link. Whatever problem is there, you can link that person with the resources and how they can deal with that situation. And final link can be maybe the mental health professional. So these are the basic concept of psychological first aid. You need to look for the emotional distress. You should connect with that person and listen to that person, and finally link that person with the resources. So take home message from my side is just that you should be able to identify that you are experiencing some kind of emotional distress, and for that most important thing is reflection, the self-awareness. If you are aware about your experiences, you will be able to make out that in what situation you should seek help. And when you have identified, try to overcome the barriers that you are experiencing to seek help. And finally, try to identify people from whom you can seek help, like your family members, friends, maybe counselors, and even if you require more help, you can connect with the mental health professionals. And always try to provide emotional support or psychological first aid to your peers as well as persons around you, your family members, anybody you can help with the emotional support as well. So thank you very much.